Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest version of Tales from Outer Space, where I take an HFY story from somewhere around the internet and read it aloud for your enjoyment. All the relevant links are down below. Like, subscribe, and all that YouTube comf to help this video and channel grow. Anyways, as always, I hope that you enjoy. I would just like to thank the following Tier 5 patrons and channel members for supporting the channel: Datamagnet and Bob the Dragon. Thank you again. And now, on to the story. War Crimes, written by Jdm5544. Sir, are you sure you want to go through with this hearing? Asked my assistant. Yes, my boy, I am very sure of it, I replied while reviewing my notes. And that's the 10th time you've asked in the last hour. 9th, and sorry, sir, he began. It's just that... He began to trail off. What is it, boy? I've told you 1,000 times I take offense only to poorly thought out statements or questions, and you're not the type to open your mouth without thinking, I said, sharper than I meant to. 942 times, sir, he quickly said. Damned both Souths and taking all numbers literally. Ah, well, my own people were thought to not have a sense of humor, I thought to myself. It's just that, your predecessors didn't exactly leave it with credible position, he blurted, snapping me out by thoughts. Ah, I say simply. For example, the first High Observer theorized that the human race saw artificial differences based on slight, almost non-existent genetic differences. He says, not hearing my response. I am well aware, I began. And the second tried to destroy the humans, believing them to be greater threat than even the Magdorans. He continued, ignoring me. Yes, I know, but I attempted to speak again. And I just think that I know, I finally yelled, getting the attention of all of those around us. I am well aware of the stigma attached to my position, just as I am aware of the controversy of the humans, I say sternly. I do not need you, of all people, to remind me of that. I'm sorry, sir, my assistant says. It is quite all right, I say, attempting to cut him off. But what worries me the most, sir, is you argued the most for their first classification, he says before I can continue. I say. Yes, that's quite true, I did, I say, not betraying my own unease. Attention, the human reclassification hearing will begin shortly. Please enter the courtroom. Well now, it appears we have somewhere to be, I say, with a note of finality. Yes it does, sir, my assistant replied. As we made our way into the massive courtroom, I began to explain what was going to happen to my assistant. We are going to go in there. The judges are all going to stroke their own egos by listing out all of their titles. After this, they are going to ask for a brief summary on the history of human observation posts since we discovered them, because they haven't read the written summary they received when I made my request. After that, they're going to ask the reason for the humans' current classification. I think I'll leave all of that to you. To me, sir? But why? He asked rather nervously. Yes, I'm leaving it to you. As to why, it is simple. That is going to take a lot of talking, and I don't feel like talking that much, I say. After the reasoning, they'll ask what classification they should receive and why it should be changed. I will handle that, I continue on. Sir, if you don't mind me asking, what is your argument? My assistant asked nervously. No, nothing you need to concern yourself with, I say airily. You'll hear it at the same time as the judges. But sir, if I don't know what your argument is, how can I help it with my statements? He asked in confusion as we took our seats. Why do you need to know my arguments to make your statements? I ask, already knowing what his answer will be. Well, sir, it's just that the history of the humans doesn't exactly inspire a feeling of lowering the classification. He states clearly, not understanding my point. Well, you may have a point there, I concede. But nonetheless, just give them the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, I say, quoting a human entertainment program that we had watched in the past. All rise for the honorable and wise judges of species character, comes booming out of the speakers around us. As I stood there, the 3 judges walked in. There was a Versoth, a Tornok, and a Maisto, 3 of the 5 species on the council. As I predicted, the hearing started off with a load of ego stroking, naming all accomplishments of the 3 judges. I only half listened and began to formulate my argument. "Sir, are you sure there isn't anything that you want me to leave out?" my assistant asks as the ego stroking winds down. "Yes, I'm sure. Tell them everything," I snap. "Now is not the time for doubts." "This hearing will now commence," comes the high-pitched voice of the Meister. "The purpose of this hearing is the species known as humanity, currently classified Class 3 violent species, formerly Class 5. Representing the human observation outpost is the High Observer and his assistant. Please stand." As my assistant and I stand, the eyes of the judges finally come upon us. "You are here to reclassify humanity, correct?" asked the Meister. "That is correct, your wisdom," I reply evenly. "Very well, please summarize the history of the human race since their discovery," he demands. "With all due respect, your wisdom, my assistant will be the one to give the history of the species in question," I state, giving myself a small bit of control. "Very well," says the judge, clearly bored with the proceedings. Yes, humanity," my assistant starts off nervously. He clears his throat. "Humanity was first discovered 26 cycles ago. The scout team gathered all available information at the time and returned to Council space. When the Council formed the first human observation force approximately a cycle later, we returned and saw the most advanced factions in humanity locked in a brutal war. They used terrible weapons and technology in the half cycle that followed. We began to study them in earnest. Millions died as a direct result of this war. We were rightly horrified, however, as the full cycle had not yet passed and we could not classify them. After this brutal war, however, we saw a seed of hope. They formed a union of several factions whose goal was to create lasting peace. As a result of this, the first rating of the human race was Class 2, violent but showing promise. The most pessimistic amongst the team claimed that this was naivety. He cited the lack of strong faction in the Union, as well as the pending economic crash the computers saw coming, as reasons the humans would not become peaceful. I am saddened to tell you that it was far, far worse than that. Approximately 6 cycles after we first began to study them, and just under 5 cycles after giving them that classification, they began another, even more brutal war. Some of the actions committed in this war horrified us to the core, but the worst action of all was the use of 2 atomic weapons before the use of atomic fission as an energy source. The gasp of horror from every mature being echoed in the courtroom. All other species had discovered nuclear fission as a source of energy first, and a weapon second. To do the opposite would be seen almost as a crime against nature. When this happened, an emergency reclassification was called, and in it, at the fervent argument of the current High Observer, humans were reclassified as Class 5 violent species, violent, unreasonable, and almost animals. Their behavior after this brutal war appeared to confirm our suspicions. They were broadly divided up into 2 separate groups, each with their own ideology, with enough fission and fusion weapons to destroy the planet many times over. After 4.5 cycles, they appeared to be on the brink of nuclear annihilation. By a miraculous series of diplomacy, they managed to avoid it. Approximately 5 cycles later, the second High Observer began to believe humanity was the single most dangerous species in the galaxy, and inputted a bug into the satellites of one of the major factions, and caused them to believe that a nuclear attack from the rival was imminent. While this second High Observer was clearly insane, his actions nonetheless would have had severe consequences on the human race, except they did not retaliate. We have since determined that they believed it to be a false alarm. 2 cycles after this, one of the 2 major factions of the human planet collapsed, and after a cycle the species was reclassified once more, this time as a Class 3, violent but intelligent. It has been 6.25 cycles since they were last reclassified. My assistant finished without a very strong conclusion. Those were always his weakness. The judges were clearly perturbed by the summary. Truth be told, all other life forms that had ever been classified as a Class 5 had later destroyed themselves, and none had ever shifted the classification around quite as much as humans had. "I see," said the Meister. "So you wish to reclassify humanity as a Class 4 dangerous species, then High Observer?" "No, Your Wisdom," I said simply. "I wish to reclassify them as a Class 1 dangerous species, violent but subdued." The shocked look on the faces of the three judges made the entire hearing worth it, in my opinion, even if it didn't go as planned. "Class 1? If we do that, then they will be forced to lift the FTL barriers we placed around them," exclaimed the Tornuk. "That is correct, Your Wisdom," I calmly state. "Was it not you who argued the most strongly for Class 5 17.5 cycles ago?" asked the Versoth. "Yes, Your Wisdom, I did," I answered, just as calm as I was. "What in all that is known caused you to change your views so radically?" inquired the Meister. "Two things, Your Wisdom, one practical and one, philosophical," I began hesitantly. "For the practical one, the human race is advancing at a rate approximately triple our own. At this rate, they'll have the technology to move at FTL speeds within 5 cycles. In addition, they have made computers that are almost on par with our own, and their medical technology is highly advanced for a species so young on a planet so harsh. I have no doubt that one day they will find a way past our barriers. And what can we do then? For at that time, they will be our technological superiors," I explain. "But far more interesting, and in my own opinion far more important, is the concept they have. In order to truly understand it, you need to understand how utterly foreign it is to us. Your Wisdoms, I ask, when your people are at war, when they capture combatants, what do they do to them? I ask. The Versoth answers first, saying, "They are captured, of course, interrogated, through force if necessary, and used as labor afterwards, like every other species in the galaxy." "I see, Your Wisdom. Tell me, what condition are these prisoners kept in? That is to say, how well fed are they? Do they receive medical attention?" I fire off a line of questions. "They are given whatever scraps are left over after our own soldiers are finished. And of course not. Why would we waste the medicine on enemies?" answered the Maestro. "What is the point of these questions?" he asked, angered. "The point is simple, Your Wisdom. We, and all other known species in the galaxy, will engage in war, but never limit ourselves while doing it. We will use whatever weapons are available. We will do what will bring about victory the easiest. To do anything else is considered foolish. In this area, the humans are our clear superiors. They have a concept that takes at least a full cycle to understand. They will limit their way they wage war as to cause the least amount of damage to non-combatants. They will treat prisoners of war with respect and feed them adequately while also ensuring they are given medical attention. They often refuse to torture to gather information. They frown upon the use of chemical and biological weapons and have formed many agreements to limit their use. They may not always follow these limits, but the mere existence is proof that the humans are, in some ways, the most peace-hungry species in the galaxy. They call the way we treat our own enemies a simple title that does not exist in any other language. They call them war crimes." End of story. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you do, please consider supporting the author, even by popping over and leaving a thumbs up or a nice comment, just to show your appreciation for the story. However, if you wish to support this channel, there are links down below which will help immensely. I will see you all in the next one, and until then, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Cheers.